The morning air inside the Galactic Confluence Zoo smelled strange to Danny Martinez. It was a mix of recycled oxygen and something sweet that the alien staff pumped through the ventilation system. The 9-year-old boy stood with his classmates from Earth, all of them wearing matching blue jackets that marked them as visitors from the newest member world of the galactic community. Danny's teacher, Mrs. Karen Phillips, was counting heads for the 3rd time that morning. She looked nervous, which was unusual for her. Back on Earth, she had taken students to museums, aquariums, and even a nuclear power plant without breaking a sweat. But here, on Station Kepler 7, millions of miles from home, surrounded by dozens of alien species, she seemed worried about everything. The zoo was massive. It stretched across 3 levels of the station, with transparent tubes connecting different sections. Through the clear walls, Danny could see other groups of alien visitors floating, walking, or slithering through their own tours. Some aliens looked almost human, just with different colored skin or extra fingers. Others looked like nothing Danny had ever imagined, even in his weirdest dreams. Their tour guide approached them with a smooth, gliding motion. Curator Zixthar was a Venturi, which meant he had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face, 3 arms, and skin that looked like polished purple stone. He wore something that might have been clothing or might have been part of his body. Danny couldn't quite tell. A small device on Zixthar's chest translated his words into English for the human group. "Welcome, young humans, to the greatest collection of life forms in this sector of the galaxy," Zixthar said. His translator made his voice sound warm and friendly, though Danny wondered what he really sounded like. "Today you will witness creatures from hundreds of worlds, each adapted to survive in conditions that most species would find impossible." The human children nodded politely. Danny's friend, a girl named Lisa Morgan, was already taking pictures with her camera. Another classmate, Alex Turner, was trying to read an alien information display and failing because the text kept shifting between languages he didn't understand. "We will begin with our most popular exhibit," Zixthar continued, leading them down a wide corridor, the Deathworld Predator Wing. Several alien families nearby heard this and quickly moved their children in the opposite direction. Danny noticed a small creature that looked like a fuzzy ball with eyes actually shiver when Zixthar said the word, Deathworld. Mrs. Phillips leaned down to whisper to Danny, "Remember, what seems scary to them might not seem scary to us. Different species, different perspectives." Danny nodded, but he was only half listening. He was too excited to see what kind of cool alien monsters they had in this place. Maybe something with acid blood, or a creature that could teleport, or one of those hive mind things he'd read about in science fiction books. The corridor opened into a huge chamber. The ceiling stretched up so high that Danny couldn't see the top. It was dark except for spotlights that illuminated individual exhibits. Each exhibit was surrounded by a shimmering energy field that hummed softly. Warning signs in multiple languages covered every surface. A group of Klaxian students was already there with their own guide. The Klaxians looked like birds that had evolved to be humanoid, with feathers and beaks but hands and upright posture. They were clustered together in the center of the viewing area, as far from the exhibits as possible, while their teacher pointed at the displays with a long stick. "Behold," Zixthar announced dramatically, gesturing to the first exhibit, the Raxus Stalker from Penth 9. The creature in the enclosure was huge. It stood on 4 legs, each one thick as tree trunks, with a body covered in overlapping plates of natural armor. Its head was broad and flat, with eyes that glowed a dull red. When it moved, the ground shook slightly even inside the containment field. The information panel beside the exhibit showed videos of the creature hunting, attacking, and doing various impressive and violent things. This magnificent predator, Zixthar explained, evolved on a world with 3 times standard gravity. It can survive falls from orbit. Its claws can cut through most known metals. It hunts in packs of up to 20 individuals, using complex strategies that demonstrate high intelligence. The Klaxian students made chirping sounds of fear and wonder. One of them had to be comforted by their teacher. Danny thought it looked pretty cool but also pretty slow. He'd seen videos of bears back on Earth, and they seemed faster and more agile than this thing, even if they weren't as heavily armored. The group moved to the second exhibit. This one was different. Instead of a large open space, it was designed like a jungle environment, with artificial trees and vines. The lighting was dim, with spots of light filtering through fake leaves. At first, Danny couldn't see any creature at all, The night claw of Verdaxis 3, Sixthar said, his voice dropping to a whisper. A solitary hunter of extraordinary capability. A shadow moved in the trees. Then Danny saw it. The creature was about the size of a medium dog, with sleek black fur that seemed to absorb light. It had a long tail for balance, 4 legs with paws that made no sound on the branches, and a face that was flat with large eyes, positioned for excellent forward vision. As Danny watched, it stretched, extending long claws from its paws, each one curved and sharp. The night claw, Sixthar continued, has retractable claws that it keeps sharp by scratching on hard surfaces. It has excellent night vision, can hear frequencies beyond most species' range, and has a flexible spine that allows it to always land on its feet when falling. Most disturbing of all, it engages in what we call surplus killing. It will wound prey and then play with it before delivering the final strike. This behavior seems to have no purpose other than entertainment for the predator. The alien students were completely silent now, staring at the creature with wide eyes. Even their teacher looked uncomfortable. Danny raised his hand. Mrs. Phillips closed her eyes briefly as if praying. "Yes, young human?" Sixthar asked, seeming pleased that one of the new species was engaging with the material. "That's just a cat," Danny said. The word hung in the air for a moment. The translator devices everyone wore seemed to struggle with it, as if unsure they had processed correctly. I'm not certain I understand," Sixthar said slowly. "A cat," Danny repeated. "We have those at home. Like millions of them. My neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, has 3. They sleep on her couch all day." Sixthar's 4 eyes all focused on Danny with an intensity that would have been frightening if the curator hadn't looked so confused. "Young human, you must be mistaken. This is an apex predator from a Class 7 Deathworld. The classification alone means—" "Yeah, but it's just a cat," Danny insisted. "They're really common on Earth. People keep them as pets. My grandma has one named Mr. Whiskers." "Pets," Sixthar repeated, his translator somehow making the word sound like a curse. "You're saying that members of your species voluntarily cohabitate with creatures identical to this predator?" "Well, yeah. They're cute, and they kill mice and stuff." Lisa leaned over. "My cat is orange and really fat. He can't even jump on the counter anymore." Alex added, "We had to give ours away because my little sister was allergic, but yeah, everybody has cats." The Claxian students were now staring at the human children instead of the exhibit. Their teacher had moved behind them, as if using the students as a shield. Sixthar looked at Mrs. Phillips, clearly hoping the adult human would explain that the children were joking or mistaken. But Mrs. Phillips just gave an apologetic smile and nodded. "It's true. Domestic cats are very common on Earth. They've lived with humans for thousands of years." The curator's 3 arms hung limply at his sides. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence one after another, as if his brain needed to reboot. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Thousands of years? At least 10,000, we think," Mrs. Phillips said. "Maybe longer." Sixthar turned back to look at the nightclaw in its exhibit. The creature was now grooming itself, licking one paw and rubbing it over its ear. It looked completely harmless, almost lazy. "This cannot be," Sixthar muttered. "The genetic profile, the behavioral patterns, everything matches our database. This species should be really good at napping," Danny suggested helpfully. The alien curator looked like he might need to sit down. Sixthar needed a moment to collect himself. He stood very still, his 3 arms clasped together in what might have been a meditation pose or just an attempt to stop them from shaking. The human children waited patiently, though Danny kept glancing back at the cat in the exhibit. It had finished grooming and was now watching a small flying drone with intense focus, its rear end wiggling slightly as if preparing to pounce. "Perhaps," Sixthar finally said, "we should continue the tour. I'm certain this is simply a case of convergent evolution. Many worlds produce similar forms independently." He led them to the next exhibit with steps that seemed less confident than before. This enclosure was designed to look like a grassland at sunset, with tall artificial grass swaying in a simulated breeze. The creature inside was smaller than the first predator they had seen, but larger than the cat. It had reddish-orange fur, pointed ears that swiveled independently, and a magnificent bushy tail. Its face was sharp and intelligent, with eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. "The Red Plains Hunter," Sixthar announced, though his enthusiasm had dimmed considerably. "This species demonstrates remarkable intelligence and adaptability. It can survive in temperatures ranging from -40 to +40 degrees standard. It's known for its cunning, its ability to solve complex problems, and its strategic approach to hunting. The creature in the exhibit was doing something with a puzzle feeder, using its paws with surprising dexterity to open compartments and retrieve food. The information display showed footage of the same species raiding storage facilities on colony worlds, outsmarting security systems that had been designed to stop much larger threats. In the wild, Zixthar continued, these hunters live in family groups and communicate with over 40 distinct vocalizations. They cache food, plan ambushes, and have been observed teaching their young complex skills. They are classified as a significant threat to any settlement established in their territory. Lisa's hand went up this time. Mrs. Phillips looked like she wanted to pull the girl's arm back down but restrained herself. Yes, young human female, Zixthar asked, his voice carrying a note of weary resignation. That's a fox, Lisa said. We learned about them in science class last month. Yeah, Alex confirmed. There's a bunch of them living near the park by my house. My dad says they get into the garbage sometimes. Your garbage? Zixthar repeated flatly. Well, yeah, if you don't close the lid properly, but mostly they just eat rabbits and mice and stuff. And they're from Earth? The curator's voice had taken on a strange quality, like someone who was expecting bad news but still hoping they might be wrong. Yep, Danny said. We did a whole project on them. Different kinds live in different places. There's red foxes, Arctic foxes, fennec foxes, multiple species, Zixthar interrupted. There are multiple variants of this predator on your world. I guess so, Danny said with a shrug. I mean, there's lots of different animals. The Claxian students had backed away even further. Their teacher was now leading them toward the exit at a pace just short of running. One of the young Claxians looked back at Danny with an expression that might have been fear or awe or both. Zixthar seemed to be struggling with something. His 4 eyes were darting between the exhibit, the human children, and his personal data device, which he had pulled out and was frantically checking. The genetic markers match the database, he muttered. The homeworld designation is correct. This is definitely from Earth, is that bad? Mrs. Phillips asked gently. I'm beginning to suspect, Zixthar said slowly, that we may have made certain assumptions about your world that require revision. He moved them along more quickly now, passing several exhibits without stopping. Danny caught glimpses of various creatures as they went. Some looked genuinely alien and strange, others looked almost familiar, though he couldn't quite place them. They stopped at a water feature, a large pool with viewing windows on multiple levels. The water was murky and dark, with artificial plants and logs creating hiding spots. At first it seemed empty. Then something moved in the depths. The creature that surfaced was long and low, covered in tough scales that looked like ancient armor. Its snout was elongated, filled with teeth that were clearly visible even with its mouth closed. Its eyes sat high on its head, allowing it to see while mostly submerged. When it moved, it did so with disturbing speed despite its size, cutting through the water like a missile. The swamp ambush predator, Zixthar said, and this time he sounded almost defensive. Surely even humans must find this creature formidable. It has remained virtually unchanged for millions of years because its design is so effective. It can hold its breath for hours, can survive for months without food, and possesses a bite force that exceeds almost any other species its size. It's an ancient killing machine. The creature in the water was now floating near the surface, perfectly still except for the slight movement of its tail. It looked like it could wait forever for prey to come close. That's an alligator, said a quiet voice. One of Danny's other classmates, a boy named Kevin Wright, had finally spoken up. Kevin was usually shy, but he loved reptiles. Or maybe a crocodile. Hard to tell from here. We have both on Earth, Mrs. Phillips confirmed, seeing no point in denying it anymore. Both, Zixthar said. Alligators and crocodiles. They're different species, but similar. And humans. Interact with these creatures? Well, not usually on purpose, Mrs. Phillips admitted. They can be dangerous. But we have facilities where people study them, and yes, where people can view them safely. Safely, Zixthar repeated. He seemed to be testing the word, as if unsure of its meaning. My uncle lives in Florida, Kevin added helpfully. He sees gators all the time. You just have to be careful near the water. Your uncle coexists in the same habitat as these predators. I mean, yeah, but it's a big state. Zixthar pulled up his data device again and started typing rapidly with all three hands. "I need to check something," he said, more to himself than to the group. They moved through more exhibits. A large bird with a hooked beak and talons like knives. "Eagle," said Lisa, a black and white creature with a long body and fierce teeth. "Badger," said Alex. "Those are mean. My cousin got bit once when he tried to pet one." "You attempted physical contact with a Deathworld predator?" Zixthar's voice had risen to a squeak. "Well, he was 7, Alex said, as if that explained everything. A spotted creature with powerful jaws resting in artificial savanna. "Hyena," said Danny, something with scales that slithered across heated rocks. "Snake," said Kevin. "Looks like a python." "We have a ball python at school in the science room." "At school," Zixthar whispered. "You keep them where you educate your young. Just one. Ms. Peterson feeds it mice once a week. It's really gentle. Students can hold it if they want." Zixthar stopped walking. They were in the middle of the Deathworld Predator Wing, surrounded by dozens of exhibits, each one showcasing what the galaxy considered some of the most dangerous creatures ever documented. The curator turned in a slow circle, his 4 eyes taking in every display. Then he started counting on his data device, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. The human children watched him with curiosity and growing concern. 47, Zixthar finally said. 47 what? Mrs. Phillips asked. 47 of the exhibits in this wing, nearly half. He looked up at the humans and his expression was difficult to read but seemed somewhere between shock and existential horror. 47 of these creatures are from Earth. The humans looked around at the exhibits with new understanding. The Raxus stalker from earlier was still visible in the distance and it remained genuinely alien and strange. But so many of the other enclosures now seemed familiar once they paid attention. The sleek swimmer that was definitely a seal. The small creature with a mask-like face pattern that had to be a raccoon. Something that looked exactly like a rat but apparently came from Earth's urban environments and was classified as a survivor species of note. That seems like a lot, Mrs. Phillips admitted. A lot, Zixthar repeated. He seemed stuck on repeating things as if his brain was trying to process information that didn't quite fit into any category he understood. Your world has produced more documented dangerous predators than any other single planet in the explored galaxy. But they're not that dangerous, Danny protested. I mean, some of them are, but mostly they just want to be left alone. The Nightclaw, Zixthar said, pointing back toward the cat exhibit, is classified as a Class 4 threat. That means it's considered dangerous to most known species and requires specialized containment. But people keep them in apartments, Lisa said. Small living spaces, Zixthar clarified, wanting to be sure he understood. You contain these predators in small living spaces where they have no room to hunt. They don't need to hunt. We feed them. You feed them, cat food. It comes in cans or bags. Some people make their own. Zixthar sat down on a bench designed for visitors. He seemed to need to sit down more and more as the tour went on. His 3 arms were trembling slightly. I need to contact my supervisor, he said quietly. This is beyond my area of expertise. This is beyond anyone's area of expertise. The emergency call reached Gregory Holmes while he was reviewing trade agreements in his small office at the Human Embassy. Gregory was the diplomatic liaison for Earth, which meant he spent most of his time explaining human customs to confused aliens and explaining alien customs to confused humans. It was usually boring work. Today was supposed to be a quiet day of paperwork. His communicator buzzed once, then twice. Then it started buzzing continuously with an urgency setting he had never actually heard before. He picked it up and saw dozens of messages from Mrs. Phillips, each one marked as high priority. Need immediate assistance at zoo. Situation escalating. Please advise. Curator in distress. Children safe but diplomatic incident possible. Please respond. This is important. Gregory grabbed his jacket and ran. He sent a quick message to Dr. Patricia Lane, the chief xenobiologist for the Human Embassy, telling her to meet him at the zoo as fast as she could get there. If this was about Earth animals, they needed someone who actually understood them. When he arrived at the Galactic Confluence Zoo 20 minutes later, he found Mrs. Phillips and her students sitting in a waiting area near the entrance. The children looked confused but excited, the way kids do when they know something interesting is happening but don't quite understand what. Mrs. Phillips looked stressed. What happened? Gregory asked. The children identified some of the animals in the Deathworld exhibit, Mrs. Phillips explained. As Earth animals. Common ones. The curator is having some kind of crisis. How bad is it? He's been in his office for an hour. Security is involved. I think we might have accidentally caused an intergalactic incident. Gregory took a deep breath. Okay, let me handle this. Dr. Patricia Lane arrived a few minutes later, slightly out of breath. She was a tall woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She carried a datapad everywhere and had a reputation for being able to explain complex biology in simple terms. She was also known for being completely unflappable, which was a useful quality in xenobiology. Someone want to tell me what's going on? She asked. Danny raised his hand. We told them the scary space monsters were just cats and foxes and stuff. Patricia blinked. I see. A security officer, a large alien that looked like a cross between a bear and an insect, approached them nervously. The curator will see you now, it said in heavily accented English. Please follow me. The human adults only. Gregory and Patricia followed the security officer through staff corridors that visitors never saw. The walls were plain metal instead of the decorative surfaces in the public areas. They passed other staff members, all of whom stopped to stare at the humans with expressions that were hard to read, but seemed somewhere between fear and curiosity. Zixthar's office was small and cluttered with datapads, holographic displays, and what looked like scientific equipment. The curator himself was sitting at his desk, surrounded by floating screens showing various Earth animals. As Gregory and Patricia entered, they could see images of cats, dogs, wolves, bears, sharks, eagles, snakes, and dozens of other creatures cycling through the displays. Zixthar looked up with all four eyes, and Gregory was surprised to see that the alien looked exhausted. Thank you for coming, the curator said quietly. I need you to tell me that I'm wrong. Please tell me that I've made a terrible mistake in my research. Patricia set her datapad on the desk. What exactly have you found? Zixthar gestured to the screens. These creatures. All of them are from Earth. All of them are in my zoo, classified as dangerous Deathworld predators. And according to the preliminary research I've done in the last hour, humans live alongside all of them with minimal concern. Well, Gregory said carefully, that's not entirely accurate. Some of these animals are dangerous. We do take precautions. But you have facilities where you keep them for public viewing. Your children told me this. They called them zoos. Yes, that's true. And some of these creatures you keep in your homes. As companions, Patricia nodded. Domestic animals, yes. We've had relationships with various species for thousands of years. Dogs, cats, horses, chickens, cattle. Stop, Zixthar interrupted. He pulled up an image of a dog, a large German shepherd. This creature? Explain this creature to me. That's a dog, Patricia said. Specifically a German shepherd breed. They're commonly kept as pets, but also used for work. Police work, military work, search and rescue, guiding people who can't see well. It's a variant of the canid tracker, Zixthar said. We have 3 of them in the zoo. They're classified as pack hunters, with advanced social intelligence and strong bite force. The information specifically warns that they can form bonds with handlers and may become aggressive in defense of their pack. Yes, dogs are loyal, Gregory agreed. That's why people like them. Zixthar stood up and began pacing with all 3 arms, gesturing. You don't understand. The galaxy has classifications for this. We have spent centuries developing safety protocols for Deathworld species, and now you're telling me that humans just ignore all of that. We're not ignoring safety, Patricia said firmly. We've just had much longer to adapt to these species than you have. We evolved with them. They're part of our environment. Your environment is the problem, Zixthar said. He pulled up a new screen showing Earth itself rotating slowly. I've been reviewing the data on your homeworld. Do you have any idea how it's classified? Class 7 Deathworld, I assume, Gregory said. We were told that when we made first contact. Class 7 is the maximum rating, Zixthar said. It means a world is so hostile that most species would require extensive life support just to visit briefly. Earth has extreme weather patterns, active tectonics, dangerous radiation levels in certain areas, toxic plant species, venomous animals, parasites, diseases, and predators in nearly every ecosystem. The ocean alone is classified as a separate threat category. It's not that bad, Patricia protested. Dr. Lane, Zixthar said, his voice taking on a lecturing tone. Your world has storms that can destroy entire settlements, waves that can crush ships, temperature extremes that can kill in minutes. Earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, droughts, and wildfires are all common occurrences. And that's before considering the biological threats. He pulled up more screens showing various Earth creatures. Your world has spiders that can kill with a single bite, plants that cause agonizing pain from mere touch, fish that produce enough electricity to stun large prey, mammals that spray chemical weapons, birds that attack in coordinated groups, and insects. So many insects. Okay, when you list it all like that, it sounds worse than it is, Gregory admitted. And yet humans thrive there, Sixthar continued. Not just survive, thrive. You've spread to every continent. You've adapted to every climate. You've learned to eat things that would poison most species. You've domesticated some of the most dangerous predators and made them help you hunt even more dangerous predators. Patricia was starting to look concerned. Curator Zixthar, I want to assure you that humans are not a threat to galactic peace. We're cooperative. We value life. I'm not worried about humans being aggressive, Zixthar interrupted. I'm worried about what it means that you don't think you're remarkable. Those children out there genuinely couldn't understand why we were so concerned about a simple cat. To them, it's normal. They see a creature that most species would classify as a dangerous predator, and they think it's cute. He sat back down heavily. Do you understand what that means? It means your baseline for danger is so fundamentally different from the rest of the galaxy that we can't even communicate about it properly. What you consider a minor inconvenience might be a serious threat to us. What we consider terrifying might be your household pet. Gregory and Patricia exchanged glances. They had known that Earth was considered dangerous by galactic standards, but they hadn't fully understood how that perception might complicate things. We need to establish new protocols, Zixthar said, pulling up a fresh screen and starting to type. The zoo's classification system is clearly inadequate. We've been using a standard that assumes all species share similar threat assessments, but if humans perceive danger differently, then we need a new system that accounts for that. What are you proposing? Patricia asked. A dual classification system, one rating for how dangerous a creature is in absolute terms, another rating for how dangerous humans perceive it to be, because apparently those are very different things. He showed them a draft of what he meant. The Nightclaw, which they called a cat, had an absolute danger rating of 7 out of 10, but its human perception rating was 2 out of 10. This is actually helpful, Patricia admitted, studying the screen. It makes the differences explicit. It's also terrifying, Zixthar said, because it means we've been underestimating your species, not in terms of aggression or military capability, in terms of sheer resilience. You've survived on a world that would kill most of us, and you don't even think it's impressive. Gregory was about to respond when another security officer knocked on the door. Curator, we're receiving inquiries from other facilities. News of the incident has spread. Multiple zoos are asking if they need to reclassify their Earth specimens. Zixthar looked at Gregory and Patricia with an expression that might have. 3 days had passed since what was now being called the zoo incident, across every major news network in the galaxy. Ambassador Helen Wright sat in her office at the Human Embassy, watching news coverage on multiple screens, and each one was showing a different aspect of the growing controversy. On one screen, a Venturi scientist was explaining to a shocked audience how humans kept predators in their homes. On another, a debate raged about whether Earth should have been allowed to join the galactic confluence without more thorough safety evaluations. A third screen showed protesters outside a zoo on the Claxian homeworld, demanding that all Earth animals be removed immediately. Helen's assistant, a young man named Peter, brought her another cup of coffee. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session, he said quietly. You're expected to present Earth's position in 2 hours. Helen nodded and turned off the screens. She had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment, working with Patricia and Gregory to compile information about Earth's wildlife, humanity's relationship with animals, and the fundamental differences in how humans perceived danger compared to most other species. The preparation had been eye-opening even for her. She had never really thought about how unusual Earth was. Growing up in Colorado, she had seen bears, mountain lions, and rattlesnakes. They were just part of life. You learned to be careful, you learned the rules, and you lived your life. It had never occurred to her that most intelligent species in the galaxy came from worlds where the most dangerous predator was roughly equivalent to a large rabbit. The Galactic Council chamber was an impressive space designed to accommodate hundreds of different species. The seating areas adjusted automatically to suit each delegate's physical needs. Some seats were in water tanks. Others were in low-gravity fields. A few were in sealed environmental pods. The diversity of the galaxy was on full display. Helen walked to the central platform, her shoes clicking on the smooth floor. She could feel thousands of eyes, optical sensors and other sensory organs focused on her. The chamber was completely silent. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice amplified by translation systems that would carry her words to every species present. "Thank you for allowing me to address this body. I understand there are significant concerns about Earth and its inhabitants following the recent incident at Kepler 7 station." A murmur ran through the chamber. She saw several delegates lean toward each other, whispering or communicating in ways she couldn't perceive. "I want to start by addressing the central issue directly," Helen continued. "Yes, it's true that many of the creatures classified as dangerous Deathworld predators in galactic databases are, to humans, common animals. Some of them are animals we keep as companions. Some are animals we farm for food. Some are animals we consider pests. And yes, some are animals we simply coexist with in shared environments." The Klaxian representative stood up, his feathers ruffling in agitation. "Ambassador Wright, your people keep creatures in your homes that we classify as Class 4 threats. How can you expect us to believe that humans are safe to interact with when you clearly have no sense of appropriate danger response?" Helen had expected this. "Representative, may I ask you a question? What is the most dangerous predator on your home world?" The Klaxian seemed confused by the question, but answered, "The Sky Razor, a flying creature with a wingspan of 2 meters and talons that can pierce armor." "And how do your people deal with Sky Razors?" "We have extensive warning systems, protective barriers, flight restriction zones. Children are taught from a young age to recognize their calls and seek shelter immediately." Helen nodded. "That's exactly what human children are taught about our predators. The difference is that Earth has dozens of species that fit that description. In different regions, children learn about different threats. In Australia, they learn about venomous spiders and snakes. In Africa, about lions and crocodiles. In North America, about bears and wolves. We develop appropriate responses based on where we live and what threats are present. But the cats," another delegate called out, a Venturi that Helen recognized from previous meetings. "You allow predators to live in your homes with your offspring. How is this safe?" "Because domestic cats have been selectively bred for over 10,000 years. Patricia's voice came from beside Helen. The scientist had joined her on the platform, as planned. "They're genetically similar to wild cats, yes, but their behavior has been modified through generations of living with humans. They're not wild animals. They're domesticated companions. But they could revert," the Venturi insisted. "The predatory instinct must still be there." "It is," Patricia agreed. "Cats still hunt. They chase toys, they stalk birds through windows, they pounce on moving objects. But they direct those instincts in ways that are compatible with human cohabitation. A house cat hunting a mouse in your basement is using the same instincts as its wild ancestors, but it's not going to hunt a human child." "How can you be certain?" someone asked. "Because we have billions of cats living with billions of humans and serious injuries are extremely rare," Patricia said. "We have thousands of years of data showing that domesticated animals are safe when properly cared for." A new delegate stood, one that Helen didn't recognize. The translation system identified them as representing a small colony world. "Ambassador Wright, I mean no disrespect, but I must ask, are humans aware that they are unusual? Do you understand that your relationship with your world's fauna is not normal by galactic standards?" Helen took a breath. This was the question she had been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. "We're beginning to understand that, yes. Before first contact, we had no context. We thought of Earth as just our home, not as particularly dangerous or unusual. We knew we had predators, but so does every world with complex life. We knew we had environmental challenges, but we assumed that was normal." She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth from space. It looked beautiful, blue and green and white with swirling clouds and vast oceans. "This is how we see our world, as home. As the place we came from and the place we return to. We don't see it as a death world because to us it's not. It's just Earth." The chamber was quiet now, every delegate listening intently. "But we're learning," Helen continued. "We're learning that our normal is not everyone's normal. That what we consider a minor inconvenience might be a serious threat to other species. That our pets might be your nightmares. We're learning to see our world through your eyes, and it's teaching us things about ourselves that we never knew. She switched the display to show images of humans doing ordinary things. A child playing with a dog, a farmer working in a field, a family having a picnic in a park. These are just normal days on Earth. But now we understand that each of these scenes contains elements that most species would find remarkable or frightening. The child is interacting with a pack predator. The farmer is working in an environment with toxic plants and venomous insects. The family is eating in an area where wild animals roam freely. And you see nothing wrong with this? Asked another delegate. We see different risks and rewards, Helen said. Humans have always lived with danger. We've learned to manage it, to minimize it, to coexist with it. And in doing so, we've formed relationships with other species that have made us both safer and stronger. A delegate from a species that looked like living crystals spoke up, their voice chiming like bells. But surely you must understand our concern, Ambassador. If humans are so accustomed to danger that they cannot recognize it, how can we trust your judgment in other matters? How do we know you won't accidentally endanger us? This was the core issue, Helen realized. It wasn't really about cats or dogs or any specific animal. It was about whether humans could be trusted to understand the concerns of species that came from safer worlds. That's a fair question, she said. And I think the answer is this: we can learn. We are learning. The incident at the zoo happened because we didn't understand how differently you perceived these animals. Now we do understand. We can adjust our behavior accordingly. Gregory stepped forward now, joining Helen and Patricia on the platform. The embassy has been working with xenobiologists from multiple species to develop new guidelines, he said. We're creating databases that show not just what Earth animals are capable of, but how humans perceive them. We're adding context that will help other species understand the actual risk levels. He brought up a sample chart showing the dual classification system that Zixthar had invented. This is what we're proposing. Every Earth species will be rated on 2 scales. Absolute capability, which measures what the animal can actually do, and typical danger level, which measures how much of a threat it poses in normal circumstances when humans are present. The chamber buzzed with discussion as delegates examined the chart. Helen could see some of them nodding or making equivalent gestures of approval. We're also proposing cultural exchange programs, Patricia added. We want to invite researchers to Earth to study our ecosystems firsthand. We'll provide safety training and controlled environments. We think direct observation will help more than any amount of data. You want us to visit your Deathworld? Someone asked incredulously. 6 months had passed since the emergency council session, and Danny Martinez was back on Kepler 7 station. This time he wasn't there for a regular field trip. He was part of something much bigger. The Galactic Confluence Zoo had invited human consultants to help redesign their exhibits, and they had specifically requested that some human children be included in the process. After all, the whole situation had started because of children, so maybe children should be part of the solution. Danny walked through the zoo with a group that included Lisa, Alex, and Kevin from his class. Mrs. Phillips was there too, but this time she seemed relaxed instead of nervous. Next to her walked Zixthar, who had become something of a celebrity in the month since the incident. The curator had written several papers about human threat perception and had given lectures across the galaxy. He seemed much more comfortable now, though he still occasionally looked at the human children with an expression of wonder. The Deathworld Predator Wing has been completely reorganized, Zixthar explained as they walked through familiar corridors that now looked different. We've split it into 3 sections based on the new classification system. They stopped at the first section. The sign above the entrance read, Genuine Threat Species in multiple languages. Inside, Danny could see creatures that still looked genuinely alien and dangerous. Things with too many legs or bodies that seemed to defy physics, or features that human evolution had never prepared them to deal with. These are species that pose actual danger to most known civilizations, including humans, Zixthar said. Notice the enhanced containment fields and warning systems. These creatures require maximum security regardless of observer species. Danny looked at a creature that seemed to be made of living electricity, crackling and sparking inside a specially designed chamber. Yeah, that's scary, he admitted. I'm pleased we agree on something, Zixthar said with what might have been humor. They moved to the second section. The sign here read Context-Dependent Species. This area was larger and more varied. The exhibits here had information displays that were much more detailed than before, with separate sections for different observer species. These are creatures that may be dangerous to some species but not to others, Zixthar explained, or creatures that are dangerous only in specific circumstances. He led them to an exhibit that Danny recognized. The Raxus stalker from his first visit was still there, looking just as armored and impressive as before. But now the information display was different. It showed multiple ratings and included videos of the creature in various situations. For most species, this remains a serious threat, Zixthar said. But we've added context. It's slow, as your student Danny noted. It's adapted for high-gravity environments, which means in standard gravity it's actually quite lumbering. And it's a herbivore. Wait, what? Alex said. That thing eats plants? Yes. The armor is for defense against predators on its home world, not for hunting. We classified it as dangerous because it's large and powerful, and could easily harm someone if startled. But it's not actually aggressive, Lisa was reading the display. So it's like a rhino or an elephant? Precisely. Dangerous if provoked, but not naturally aggressive toward humans or most other species. They continued through the section, and Danny started to see the pattern. Each exhibit now included detailed information about behavior, diet, actual threat level, and specific risks. Some creatures that had seemed terrifying before were now explained in ways that made sense. The third section was the one Danny had been waiting to see. The sign read, Earth Biodiversity, a Deathworlder's Perspective. They walked through the entrance, and Danny immediately felt a strange mix of amusement and pride. The exhibits here were completely different from before. Instead of dark, dramatic lighting and ominous music, everything was bright and open. The information displays included videos of humans interacting with the animals, historical information about domestication, and detailed explanations of behavior and ecology. The first exhibit they came to was the one Danny remembered most clearly. The Nightclaw, which was of course just a cat. But now the exhibit looked completely different. It was larger, with multiple levels, climbing structures, and toys. And instead of one cat, there were 3 of them. One was sleeping in a sunbeam, one was playing with a feather toy, and one was watching a group of alien visitors with calm indifference. We've redesigned this as an educational habitat, rather than a containment facility, Zixthar explained. Visitors can observe natural cat behavior in a setting that demonstrates how humans and cats coexist. Danny watched as one of the cats stood up, stretched with elaborate care, and then walked over to a water bowl to drink. An alien child nearby made a sound that might have been fear or awe. The cat glanced at them, blinked slowly, and went back to drinking. The response has been fascinating, Zixthar continued. Many visitors are still nervous at first, but once they see how the cats behave, they begin to understand. These are predators, yes. They have sharp claws and teeth. They're efficient hunters in their weight class. But they're also small, mostly lazy, and primarily interested in sleeping and eating. That's Mr. Whiskers exactly, Danny said, remembering his grandma's cat. The next exhibit featured dogs, several different breeds from small to large. They had a spacious area to run in, and Danny could see that a human handler was inside the enclosure, playing fetch with a border collie while a golden retriever dozed in the shade. This exhibit has been particularly educational, Zixthar said. The concept of domestication is difficult for many species to understand. They see the genetic similarity between dogs and wolves and assume they're equally dangerous, but observing the actual behavior helps clarify the differences. As they watched, the human handler threw a ball, and the border collie ran to retrieve it with obvious joy. The dog brought the ball back, dropped it at the handler's feet, and waited eagerly for another throw. Several alien visitors were watching with expressions of surprise. The enthusiasm and cooperation are what surprise people most, Zixthar noted. They expect predators to be aggressive and solitary. Seeing how much dogs enjoy working with humans challenges those assumptions. They moved through more exhibits. Horses, showing how humans use them for transportation and work. Chickens demonstrating food animal domestication. Cows, sheep, and goats showing how humans manage large herbivores. And then the wild animals presented with new context. The fox exhibit now included information about urban foxes and how they adapted to living near humans. The alligator habitat had signs explaining that while dangerous, alligators typically avoid humans and that people who live near them learn to coexist through education and caution. We've added something new, Zixthar said, leading them to a large open area at the center of the section. An interactive experience. The area was set up like a human living room. There was a couch, a television, bookshelves, and various other furnishings. And sitting on the couch were two cats, one orange and one gray. A sign invited visitors to observe from behind a transparent barrier. This is a live demonstration, Zixthar explained. Several times a day, human volunteers come in and just live in this space. They read, watch shows, work on computers. And the cats do what cats do. Sleep mostly. Sometimes they sit on laps or play. It's extraordinarily mundane. And people come to watch this? Kevin asked. It's one of our most popular attractions, Zixthar admitted. Because it's so normal to you but so alien to everyone else. The idea of being in an enclosed space with predators, completely relaxed, reading a book while one of them sleeps on your feet? It's incomprehensible to most species, but they're fascinated by it. As if to demonstrate the point, a human volunteer entered the living room space. She was a young woman with dark hair, and she greeted the cats cheerfully before sitting on the couch with a tablet. The gray cat immediately climbed into her lap, circled twice, and settled down to sleep. The woman absently petted the cat while reading, completely comfortable. A crowd of alien visitors gathered at the barrier, watching with intense focus. Some were taking notes. Others were recording video. Children were asking their parents questions in languages Danny couldn't understand, but he could guess what they were asking. Is that safe? Why isn't she afraid? Does the cat like her? We've had to add staff to manage the crowds, Zixthar said. We never expected this section to be so popular. We thought it would be educational but niche. Instead, it's become the main attraction. People want to understand humans, Mrs. Phillips said thoughtfully, and this helps them do that. They continued through the exhibit, and Danny noticed something interesting. The signs and information displays weren't just about the animals anymore. They included information about human history, evolution, and culture. There were explanations of how humans developed agriculture, how cities formed, how technology advanced. It was as much about humans as it was about Earth's animals. We realized, Zixthar said, noticing Danny's interest, that you can't really understand Earth's fauna without understanding the humans who evolved alongside them. Your relationship with your world's other species is unique in the known galaxy. You're predators who domesticated other. The exchange program started small. Just 5 volunteers from different species, carefully selected for their scientific background and psychological stability. They would spend 2 weeks on Earth, studying human-animal interactions in controlled environments. Dr. Patricia Lane would lead the program, along with a team of human biologists, psychologists, and safety experts. The volunteers arrived at the research facility in Colorado on a clear spring morning. The facility had been specially built for this purpose, with accommodations suited for different species and environments that could be carefully controlled. But the goal was eventually to move beyond the facility and show the visitors real Earth in all its chaotic, dangerous, beautiful complexity. The 5 volunteers were Zixthar, who had become something of an expert on human behavior, a Klaxian scientist named Trill, who specialized in predator behavior, a Venturi biologist called Rix, a crystalline being named Harmony who studied ecosystems, and a small, timid creature named Pip, who represented a species that was particularly frightened of Earth but wanted to understand it better. Patricia met them in the main conference room. "Welcome to Earth," she said warmly. "I know this is intimidating. I want you to know that your safety is our absolute priority. We won't expose you to anything dangerous, and we'll move at whatever pace is comfortable for you." "Thank you, Dr. Lane," Zixthar said. "I think I speak for all of us when I say we're both terrified and excited." "That's a healthy attitude," Patricia said with a smile. "Let's start with the basics. This facility is secure. Nothing can get in that we don't want to get in. The local wildlife is used to the building and generally ignores it. We have sensors that will alert us if any large animals approach, though that's extremely unlikely." "What animals are in this area?" Trill asked, her feathers ruffling nervously. "Deer, rabbits, squirrels, various birds, some foxes, coyotes in the hills, and occasionally a black bear passing through. But they avoid humans and our buildings. You're more likely to see a rabbit than anything else." Pip made a small sound that the translator interpreted as worry. Patricia knelt down to be closer to the small creature's eye level. "I promise we won't let anything happen to you. We'll take this one step at a time. The first day was orientation. Patricia showed them videos of various Earth animals, explaining behavior, body language, and safety protocols. She taught them the difference between actual danger signs and normal animal behavior that might look alarming. When a dog wags its tail, that usually means it's happy or excited, she explained, showing a video of a friendly golden retriever. But you have to look at the whole body. Ears forward, loose posture, open mouth. That's a friendly dog. Ears back, stiff posture, showing teeth. That's a warning. There are so many signals to learn, Rick said, taking detailed notes with 2 of his 3 hands. Humans learn them as children, Patricia said. It becomes automatic. But I understand that for you it's all new information. That's why we're going slowly. On the second day they met their first Earth animal. Patricia brought them to a large, comfortable room where a cat was waiting. Not just any cat, but an old, lazy orange tabby named Pumpkin who belonged to one of the research staff. Pumpkin was famous around the facility for being the friendliest, most relaxed cat anyone had ever met. The cat was lying on a cushion in a sunbeam, purring audibly. The visitors stood at the opposite end of the room, watching with a mix of fascination and fear. This is Pumpkin, Patricia said. He's 15 years old, which is quite old for a cat. He's spent his entire life with humans. His favorite activities are eating, sleeping, and getting petted. He has no interest in hunting anything more challenging than his food bowl. It's so small, Harmony chimed. The images at the zoo made it seem larger. Adult cats typically weigh between 8 and 15 pounds, Patricia said. Pumpkin is about 12 pounds, which is average. Come a little closer. I promise he won't move. He's too comfortable. They inched forward as a group, staying clustered together. Pumpkin opened one eye to look at them, then closed it again and kept purring. Why does it make that sound? Trill asked. That's purring. Cats purr when they're content. It's one way they communicate that they're happy and relaxed. Patricia sat down near Pumpkin and gently stroked his back. The cat's purring got louder, and he stretched slightly, pushing into her hand. See, he likes being petted. It's a form of social bonding. May I try? Zixthar asked, surprising everyone, including himself. Of course. Come sit here. Move slowly and calmly. Let him see you coming. Then just gently stroke his back like I was doing. Zixthar approached carefully, his 4 eyes focused on the cat. He sat down awkwardly, his 3 arms not quite sure what to do. Patricia guided one of his hands to Pumpkin's back. Zixthar touched the soft fur tentatively, then began to stroke gently. Pumpkin's purring intensified. The cat lifted his head and looked at Zixthar with half-closed eyes, then bumped his head against the Venturi's arm. He likes you, Patricia said. That head bump is a sign of affection. Zixthar continued petting the cat, and something in his posture changed. The tension flowed out of him. It's so soft, he said quietly, and warm, and the vibration is pleasant. Over the next hour, each visitor took a turn petting Pumpkin. Even Pip, the most nervous, eventually worked up the courage to touch the cat's fur with one tiny appendage. Pumpkin tolerated all of it with the patience of an elderly cat who had seen everything and was unimpressed by anything except dinner time. This is remarkable, Rick said. At the zoo, I saw cats as dangerous predators. But experiencing this directly, I can understand why humans bond with them. The sensory experience is quite positive. The third day, they met dogs. Patricia started with an older, well-trained therapy dog named Maggie, a gentle yellow Labrador who had worked with nervous patients for years. If any dog could win over frightened aliens, it was Maggie. Maggie sat patiently while Patricia explained dog behavior. Dogs are more active than cats and more socially engaged. They see humans as part of their pack. Maggie has been trained to be calm and gentle. She works with people who are nervous or upset. Maggie looked at each visitor with soft brown eyes, her tail wagging slowly. When Patricia gave permission, Maggie stood up and walked slowly toward the group. Several of them backed up, but Harmony stood firm, fascinated. Maggie stopped in front of Harmony and sat down, looking up at the crystalline being with curiosity. She lifted one paw, a trick she'd been taught as a form of greeting. She's offering to shake hands, Patricia explained. It's a friendly gesture. Harmony reached out a crystalline appendage and touched Maggie's paw. The dog's tail wagged harder, and she made a small happy sound. Harmony chimed with what might have been laughter or joy. I understand now, Harmony said. The communication is clear. She's showing friendliness in a way that translates across species. This is quite sophisticated. By the end of the first week, the visitors had met cats, dogs, rabbits, chickens, and even a very old, very gentle horse named Butterscotch. They had learned to read animal body language, to distinguish between playful behavior and aggression, to understand that context mattered more than species classification. The second week was more ambitious. Patricia took them, with extensive safety measures, to visit a zoo. Not an alien zoo with force fields and warning systems, but a human zoo where families walked freely among exhibits separated by nothing more than fences and moats. "This is terrifying," Pip said, looking around at all the humans walking calmly with their children. "I know it seems that way," Patricia said, "but watch the people. They're relaxed. The children are excited but not frightened. This is normal for them." They watched a group of children press their faces against the glass of a lion exhibit. The lions were sleeping in the sun, looking remarkably similar to very large versions of Pumpkin. One child pointed and said something about kitties, and the parent laughed and corrected them gently about the difference between house cats and lions. The child made the same connection that humans apparently make naturally, Zixthar noted, seeing the similarity in form between the domesticated and wild versions. They visited the petting zoo section, where children could touch and feed goats, sheep, and rabbits under supervision. The visitors watched as a small human child, maybe 4 years old, carefully offered food to a goat. The goat took it gently and the child giggled with delight. "The trust is what amazes me," Trill said. "That child has no fear. The parent is watchful but not worried. They've learned to assess risk very differently than we do." The final days of the program were spent in more natural settings. They hiked on carefully chosen trails where they might see deer or rabbits. They visited a farm where they saw the relationship between humans and livestock animals. They attended a dog training class where they watched humans and dogs working together with obvious mutual enjoyment. On the last evening, they gathered for a final discussion. Patricia asked each of them to share what they'd learned. Zixthar spoke first. "I've learned that Deathworld doesn't mean what I thought it meant. Earth is dangerous, yes, but humans haven't conquered that danger or eliminated it. They've learned to live alongside it. They've formed partnerships with it. That's very different from how most species approach environmental challenges." 2 years had passed since Danny Martinez had first pointed at a cat in an alien zoo and changed everything. He was 11 now, sitting in his classroom back on Earth, listening to his teacher talk about the upcoming assignment. His class had become somewhat famous after the zoo incident, and they often got special opportunities because of it. "We've been invited to participate in the first Galactic Youth Cultural Exchange," Mrs. Phillips announced. "Students from 20 different species will be coming to Earth for a week-long program. We've been asked to host some of them and show them what life is really like here." The class erupted in excited chatter. Danny exchanged looks with Lisa and Alex. This was exactly the kind of thing they'd been hoping for. "Now I want to be clear," Mrs. Phillips continued. "This is a responsibility, not just fun. These students are nervous about coming to Earth. Many of them have been taught that our planet is dangerous. We need to show them that while Earth has challenges, it's also beautiful and safe when you know how to navigate it." Danny raised his hand. "What species are coming?" "We'll have Klaxians, Venturi, and several others. Some of them have never left their homeworld before. This will be a big adventure for them." The preparations took weeks. Families had to prepare their homes for alien visitors with different environmental needs. The school set up special accommodations. Local authorities were briefed on how to handle potentially nervous alien visitors. The whole community got involved. Danny's family was hosting a young Klaxian named Chirp. The name was actually something much more complex, but Chirp was the closest translation to human language. Chirp arrived on a transport with the other visitors, looking nervous but excited. He was about Danny's age with gray,